As John Carpenter once said, horror is a reaction, it's not a genre. It's a sentiment shared by American writer Douglas E. Winter, who described it as an emotion. If you've ever played the best PS4 horror games, you may know what they mean. The constant tension, the increased heart rate, the occasional jump scare that threatens to send your controller flying. Those are what define horror. So when we compiled this list of the best PlayStation 4 horror games, that's precisely what we looked for. Do you find being scared out of your wits entertaining? Then you'll want to add all of these games to your hard drive. Delete LittleBigPlanet, delete Slime Rancher, and any of those other happy-go-lucky fluffy games, and make room for hundreds of gigabytes of scares. We did our best to include only PS4 exclusives, but that would require ignoring truly phenomenal horror games, so pardon any multi-platform titles. Number 10. The Evil Within 2. The Evil Within was one of the scariest games of 2014, so it only makes sense that Tango Gameworks would follow up with one of the scariest games of 2017. With the promise of being reunited with his allegedly deceased daughter, Sebastian Castellanos plugs back into STEM for a trippy journey down horror lane. Rather than rehash what worked with The Evil Within, the follow-up is more expansive with a partially open world and far more baddies to run away from. Of the many horrors you'll face, Anima, the singing ghost lady, is definitely among the most unsettling. This is one of many games on this list of the PS4 best horror games that benefits from the great use of atmosphere and sound design, and Anima drives that point pretty hard. The Evil Within 2 is a supremely underrated horror game, so give it a shot if you haven't yet. Number 9. Until Dawn. From the creators of LittleBigPlanet and Start the Party Save the World comes Until Dawn, a survival horror game set in the Blackwood Mountains. That's quite the tone shift for supermassive games, but the developer has little issue finding a home in the horror genre. Until Dawn is heavy on quick-time events, but the even pacing and intriguing story makes that pretty easy to overlook. Its greatest feat is the butterfly effect system, where every choice has a consequence later on down the road. Sure, it's not the newest concept, but it's quite a bit more complex in Until Dawn than it has been in many other games. Supermassive Games' romp in the icy mountains has everything you'd expect from a true-to-form survival horror title. There's plenty of gore, mysterious characters, jump scares, over-the-top death scenes, and an unexpected twist that completely changes the game. Number 8. Observer. As Daniel Lazarski, a detective of the Observer's police unit, players are equipped with a host of abilities that help them in the investigation of a grisly murder. In the wake of a digital plague known as the nanophage, the world has been torn apart by war and the spread of drug use. It's not a pretty place and helps bolster the psychological horrors entwined within. There is plenty to mess around with your head, including one segment that just throws about everything the game has at you without mercy. It's often hard to tell what you're looking at in amongst all the glitches and mindfucks, which tends to the mystery that keeps players unsure of what may be coming at them next. If you can get past the monotony of the stealth segments, you're in for one heck of a mind-bending ride. There's even a next-gen update inbound for the PlayStation 5. Don't know why, to be honest, it just is. Number 7. Outlast 2. After the original Outlast terrified gamers with a relatively simple concept, there was no doubt a sequel would emerge. Red Barrels did not disappoint when they sent players in the Supai region of Arizona, again equipped with nothing more than a video camera and night vision. Outlast 2 trades in the familiar setting of a decrepit asylum for a secluded village, but is still set in the same universe. That of course means the crazes that the corporation's experiments created. Outlast 2 has heavy religious overtones that help play into the overall creep factor of the isolated village. While Outlast focused more on in-your-face horror, Outlast 2 is better at building up anticipation. Ultimately, you spend plenty of time expecting the worst as you hide in grass and try not to cry. I'm still not calm from that chase in the sawmill. Number 6. The Forest. We have to assume that not all cannibals are bad. Hannibal was a bit of a lad sometimes. Some just want to be left alone and enjoy their secluded islands. Then there are the mutated freaks of End Night Games' The Forest, a survival game with heavy undertones of horror. These cannibals come at the most inopportune moments along your journey, their eerie calls echoing in the distance. Catch them at the right moment and you may just spot their shadowed frames standing at the edge of your encampment. It's all shades of freaky, even if they don't pursue an attack. While the focus of the forest is surviving, a concept that's nothing new to the gaming world, the cannibalistic mutants help add a thick layer of horror. Humanoid cannibals may be bad enough, but there's also an army of multi-limbed, limbless and malformed creatures lurking about the depths of the forest. Can you survive long enough to locate your son and uncover the secrets of the peninsula? Or will you succumb to the horrors that stalk you come nightfall? Or will you just use a turtle shell to yeet around everywhere? Number 5. Little Nightmares. Tarsier Studios entices players with a slow-paced platformer with a stunning art style and incredibly creepy environments. Then, the studio throws hulking monstrosities pulled from a Tim Burton nightmare into the fray. When moulded together, it's a thoroughly enjoyable experience that is more unnerving than in-your-face scary. Little Nightmares is an atmospheric adventure ripe with puzzles and surprisingly fun platforming segments. Among the more puzzling aspects is the occasional heart-pounding escape from the clutches of clay-faced chefs, long-armed janitors, and a mysterious lady with mystical powers. The character design is by far among the most horrifying in recent history and is sure to find its way into your dreams. Or should we say, into your little nightmares? Number 4. Resident Evil 7. There are two very distinct reasons why Resident Evil 7 is on this list. To start, it was the first game in the series to have a real sense of atmosphere since the first 2 games. Second, if you played it with a PSVR headset, you're going to experience fear on an entirely new level. Okay, maybe it's not that scary, but survival horror and virtual reality go together better than we could have expected, and Resident Evil 7 is a prime example of how they marry. While many panned Resi 7 for deviating too much from the original series with its FPS switch, it's the fresher notes that make it such a good game. The new location, characters and story give the series the restart it needed. As for the first-person view, it fits right into the Resident Evil franchise. Koji Nakanishi knew exactly how to bring the series back to its roots without being a dull rehash. Number 3. The Last of Us Remastered. We toyed with leaving The Last of Us off this list since it's technically a PS3 game, but it deserves to be on here. Even though the remastered version doesn't change much beyond the visuals and frame rate, the story, gameplay, characters, tone and included DLC are enough to make this a remastered version worth owning, even if you've played the original. If you've yet to dive into The Last of Us, you are in for a treat. Naughty Dog's grasp on effective storytelling weaves a gut-wrenching tale that will have you laughing, crying, and letting out the occasional scream. The infected are fast and deadly, but what's sure to get your pulse racing is the sound design. The moment you know what a clicker sounds like, you'll wish you could forget. There are plenty of tense, horrifying moments, but it's the dynamic between Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson that truly sells the experience. It's emotional, gripping, and just downright excellent. Number 2. Bloodborne. If you somehow are in the school of thought that Bloodborne does not belong on a horror list, we have to ask one question. Have you gone mad? Between the gothic tone, horrifying creature design and tense pacing, Bloodborne practically defines the genre. It may be light on jump scares, note we say light, not devoid of, but a horror game is so much more than one-off shocking moments. Sure, the adrenaline that comes with anticipating your next scream is fun, but so is the rush of knowing the enemy up ahead will totally decimate you. Beyond the scourge beasts, brutish giants and fishmen, Bloodborne perpetuates a feeling of dread from the moment you awaken as a hunter to the towering final boss. If you don't mind complicated gameplay that requires patience and timing, Bloodborne is one horror title that belongs in every PS4 owner's library. And at number 1, Resident Evil 2. Oh, like you didn't see this coming. As much praise as we sang for Resident Evil 7, the remake of Resident Evil 2 gets it doubly so. Rather than simply slap fresh new visuals on the 1998 sequel, Capcom went back to the drawing board using the RE engine to build a game that looks and sounds phenomenal. The beautifully grotesque visuals and impressive use of sound design immerse players in the atmosphere of the museum turned police station. Every zombie groan and liquor growl, the rhythmic thumping of Mr. X, and the occasional moments of eerie silence round out a game that excels at being terrifying. While the story has a few polarizing tweaks and we don't quite get the same A and B scenarios, Resident Evil 2 expertly captures what we loved so much about the original. Nostalgia aside, the remake is also a well-rounded horror title for newcomers to the Resident Evil series with a worthy introduction to one of, if not the, best cast of characters in the series. A remake of the third game, meanwhile, didn't quite manage to live up to it, but it is still some good fun. And there you have it, our top 10 list of the best PS4 horror games. So, what did you think? Agree? Disagree? Any that you would have put in that you think we missed out? Let us know in the comments down below, we'll be happy to hear from you and see what you think. But as ever, thank you for watching the video and keeping it tuned to the Vultures Nest. Please follow Cultured Vultures on all the social medias you can see on screen now, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on all the latest videos right here on the Cultured Vultures YouTube channel. But until then, caw-caw!